Okay, let's dive right into this. If I asked you to name your top 3 favorite video games, chances are at least one or two of them are these massive, blockbuster AAA titles. But here's a wild fact for you. India is, in many ways, a gaming superpower. It's home to a truly staggering number of players. That's right. A full 20% of the entire world's gaming population lives in India. The growth there over the last decade, it's been absolutely explosive. So you'd think with that kind of massive audience, the country would be a total hotbed for making its own epic games. But that brings us to the central mystery of this whole story. With all those players, all that passion, and a booming tech scene, why hasn't a single major, globally recognized AAA game ever come out of India? Is it a lack of talent? No way. Is it a lack of an audience? We just saw that's not true. So what is really going on here? Well, it turns out the answer is pretty complex. Let's break it down. Okay, so first things first, to really get a grip on the challenge here, we need to be crystal clear on what AAA even means. You see, the world of game development is kind of split into tiers, and the differences between them, well, they're enormous. So, at the ground floor, you've got your indie games. The name kind of says it all, right? They're made independently by tiny teams, sometimes even just one person. What they're missing in budget, they more than make up for with pure creative freedom and innovation. We're talking about absolute gems like Stardew Valley or Hollow Knight. There's no big publisher breathing down their necks, so they can get really experimental. Now, take one step up that ladder, and you land in what we call AA territory. These are your games from mid-sized studios. They've got more cash to play with than an indie dev, for sure, but they're not exactly swimming in blockbuster money either. This tier is all about finding that perfect sweet spot between quality and, affordability. And then you have the final boss, the AAA game. These are the titans, the behemoths of the industry. They are built by gigantic studios, backed by even bigger publishers, with teams of hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. Yeah, we're talking about the Grand Theft Auto 5s and the Last of Us's of the world. These aren't just games, they're global cultural events. And this chart, wow, it really puts the financial leap into perspective. An indie game might cost you up to $1 million. A AA game, maybe $12 million. But a AAA game, that's where you start at $100 million, and it often goes way, way higher. It's not just another step up, it's a launch into a completely different financial stratosphere. And that, right there, brings us to the first massive hurdle. So, the most important thing to understand here is the need for just a colossal amount of sustained investment. See, making a AAA game isn't just about having a great idea, it's about having incredibly, incredibly deep pockets. And listen, it's not a one-time payment. That $100 million plus price tag, that gets spread out across years of development, testing, a worldwide marketing blitz, and then support after the game launches. It is a long, expensive, and frankly super risky marathon. Now, in countries that make these huge games, the funding comes from massive publishers. Think Sony, Ubisoft, or Rockstar. They're big enough to back a project for years, and this is the key part, they are willing to take those huge risks. But in India, the whole investment culture is just different. Local investors typically want a fast, safe return on their money, things like fintech or IT services. The idea of a high-risk, nearly decade-long bet on a video game, it is absolutely terrifying to them. There's this quote from our source material that just hits the nail on the head. It describes the situation for Indian game studios perfectly. It's like you don't have food to eat, but you want to become a chef. I mean, when a studio is just struggling to survive project to project, how can it even begin to dream of making a multi-million-dollar masterpiece? The focus is just on survival, not on that kind of grand ambition. Okay, so the big money just isn't there. But wait a minute, what about that huge audience? We said 20% of the world's gamers are in India. Well, the kind of gaming they do, that's the next major piece of this puzzle. Yeah, just look at this chart. While the total number of gamers is massive, the overwhelming, crushing majority of them are on their smartphones. The community of players who actually own high-end PCs or consoles, the main platforms for AAA games, is just a tiny, tiny fraction of the total. And that changes everything. Now, the easy argument, the one you hear all the time, is that Indian gamers just can't afford expensive consoles or pricey games. But the reality, it's a little more complicated than that. It might actually be less about what they can't afford and a whole lot more about what they choose to spend their money on. Because what you see time and time again are these stories of players spending thousands, even lakhs of rupees, on things like microtransactions in free-to-play mobile games. They're buying weapon skins, cool outfits, all kinds of digital stuff. So the money is clearly there, but the spending culture is built around that free-to-play model, not on buying a big premium game for a one-time price. And all of this leads to what might be the most ironic, most frustrating part of this entire situation. India actually has the talent to make world-class AAA games. In fact, Indian developers are already making some of the biggest games in the world. They're just not doing it for Indian companies. And that's because all the major international studios have set up shop right there in India. You've got companies like Ubisoft, Rockstar, and EA with these huge offices, just filled with incredibly skilled Indian artists, programmers, and designers who are all contributing to massive global hits. The talent is 100% there. So why don't they work for the local studios? This table pretty much says it all. The international giants, they offer way higher pay, much more job security, and let's be honest, the incredible opportunity to work on globally respected blockbuster games. The local Indian studios, they just can't compete with that. And that leads to this massive brain drain. And to really put a fine point on it, check this out. Nearly 1,000 Indian developers at Rockstar India worked on Grand Theft Auto 5. That made them the single largest contributor to one of the biggest, most successful games of all time. So yeah, the skill is clearly not the problem. The problem is the lack of opportunity at home. So after all these challenges, the money, the market, the brain drain, you might think the situation is hopeless, but it's not necessarily. In just the last few years, we've started to see these glimmers of real ambition, a genuine push to change the story. We're seeing these new projects pop up that are just aiming so much higher. Games like Indus, Mumbai Gullies, and The Age of Bharat are generating a lot of buzz. Now, to be clear, these aren't traditional AAA games just yet, but they represent a brave, ambitious step forward that very few Indian studios have been willing to take before. And all this has led to a fascinating potential strategy. What if, instead of trying to jump straight to a PC or console blockbuster, Indian studios leverage their biggest strength, that massive mobile market? The idea is to first create a AAA mobile game, something with console-quality graphics and really deep gameplay. If they can successfully build a culture where players are willing to pay for that quality on mobile, they can then turn around and use those profits to fund a true, full-scale AAA project for PC and consoles. And that leaves us with one last, really thought-provoking question. Could this mobile-first approach actually be India's unique path forward? Instead of just copying the Western or Japanese model, could using the world's biggest mobile gaming audience be the key to finally unlocking the country's potential? It's a strategy born from their unique challenges. And you know what? It just might be the one that finally works.